But we do start with the battle in the state legislature over a financial bailout for Detroit public schools. Late Wednesday night, the Senate passed the $617 million plan from the House. It did not have any Democratic support, nor any support from Detroit lawmakers. It will not have the Detroit Education Commission to regulate traditional and charter school locations. It will bring back a city-elected school board. Let's bring in our MiWeek contributors. You know Nolan Finley of the Detroit News, and filling in for Stephen this week is Free Press columnist Nancy Kaffer. Nancy, welcome back to MiWeek. It's always good to have you here.
It's always good to be here.
And talking about a subject that we have been now going over, what's happening at DPS for the past year, and waiting to see what this eventual plan will be to bring DPS and really all the schools in Detroit up to speed and where it needs to be for kids to succeed. Nolan, let me get your take on what was finally agreed upon this plan.
Well, I mean, it wipes out Detroit's debt. It'll be the only debt-free district in the state, so that gives it a fresh start, if you will. Gives it $150 million to restart a new district, add programming. There's money in there for raises for teachers. There's money in there for new academic programs and to fix administration. So in that sense, there should be enough money to give this district a healthy start, and it returns local control to the local school board. It asks the school reform office to come up with an A to F grading system so that if you fail 3 years, whether you're a public school or charter, you're closed. I think that was something we need to root out the chronically failing schools. My problem with the legislation from the very beginning is I don't think it was a big enough play to address the challenges of educating a poor urban population. I think it maintains sort of a traditional system of education in the city, and that hasn't worked. I mean, we had a story in the paper today about these horrible rate of chronic absenteeism. You've got to meet the needs of a impoverished population, and I think this just maintains a traditional model of education.
Highlights, lowlights in this for you, Nancy.
Well, that $150 million is $50 million shy of what Judge Stephen Rhodes, the school's latest emergency manager, says is necessary to start this new district. So I'm a little concerned that it's a bit of a setup, that the new district is going to be poised to fail by not having enough money to get off the ground. And as Nolan said, when we have seen interventions in urban impoverished school district work, they've been incredibly expensive and comprehensive, like the Harlem Children's Zone, Jeffrey Canada's effort to improve educational outcomes in a 100 square block area of Harlem, offers wraparound services. It starts with parents when children are born to get them involved in coming to school, to get the parents involved in education. This package barely provides enough money to start up this new district, much less the kind of comprehensive effort we need. But worse than that, it doesn't have this Detroit Education Commission, which was sort of envisioned as an air traffic controller to ensure that schools are opening in a way that makes geographic sense, to ensure that parents have a real transparent way to measure accountability and performance of charter and public schools. And the worst part is about this legislation is it creates a different standard for education in Detroit that is lesser than the standard of every other school district in this state. The idea that teachers don't need to be certified to teach in Detroit. My child goes to school in Detroit. Why should my child be taught by an uncertified teacher? Would you want your child to be taught by an uncertified teacher?
That's actually an improvement over what other districts in the state has, and it's something that should be extended statewide. I mean, what it does.
How is that an improvement?
It's an option, not a mandate. It allows for innovative education, the sort of things you were just talking about. It allows for partnerships with the community. At the present time, I mean, if you wanted to go in and teach a class on broadcast journalism, you couldn't do it. And you certainly have the expertise to do it. You don't have a certification. That doesn't mean the district can, it doesn't mean the district has to. I mean, it has the option of doing whatever it wants with this, but particularly in career and vocational tech, it opens it up for partnerships with business, partnerships with the community, more innovative education models.
Do you think that'll be used in that way, or do you think it'll be used to plug holes, or just be putting people in places?
If it's used to plug holes, then I mean you fault the school board. The school board has the option to do this or not, and you hope they'll do it the right way.
Nancy?
Could a blogger do your job? Are you ready to step down
They're
today
doing-
and have
they're
someone from the
doing-
community come
the
into your
bloggers
job?
are doing my job all over the country. They're doing this.
But you believe
that's
there's
that's an individual comment. I think the bloggers could do.
But you believe there is a worth and value to your professional expertise and the training that you have received, right? You believe there's a value to it. You must, because it's what you do.
A college professor from Wayne State could walk into the Detroit Public Schools and effectively teach a class.
No. Here's
and
why.
Can't today.
Here's why.
And so
Okay,
I think
Christy.
you have-
To use Christy
Hang on,
as our
you guys
example
got
here.
you got to finish. You got to each finish a sentence. Go ahead, Nancy.
To use Christy as our example here, Christy has a lot of knowledge about broadcast journalism, but having that knowledge and having the ability to communicate it effectively to children ranging from ages 5 to 18, those are two completely
She's got
different
a flock
skills.
of them at home. I'm sure she'll be able to do that.
All right, let's take me out of the picture here for just 1 second here, and I want to talk about the larger problem that I think the Detroit delegation had with what happened here. And last night I was watching on Wednesday night the Senate feed and how they addressed the fact that and it was very sharp. I mean, you had lawmakers calling senators saying you're cowards for doing this, that you have caved to special interests, to the charter lobby, and the disappointment that I think that it came down to a charter versus public argument, which should never have come down to this point.
No, but it should be about education. And the bottom line here was this legislature, Republican legislature, coughed up another $600 and some million in a Detroit rescue on top of the the $350 million they did a couple of years ago. That
Critics
is a
would
huge
say, though,
commitment,
that
$1
was
billion.
money, that was debt run up under
Sure,
state
of
control.
course it was,
So that was something
but
they
this
should have
legislature
to pay
could have stonewalled on it for forever, and they didn't. And
So
I
we're
think
supposed to
it gives-
applaud them for not gamble. I mean, I'm sorry, I'm trying to think of a nice way to say this. We're supposed to applaud them for acting to help more than 100,000 children. Like that's supposed to be like,
We
yeah, you
applaud
guys
them
didn't
for
drop the
wiping
ball
away the debt,
completely
for
on
giving
this.
this district a fresh start,
But
and returning it to
you're saying
local
that we should
control.
applaud them for not dithering for another year. Like
But
they should have got this sorted out last
legislation
year.
was needed, and they delivered it, and they delivered almost all of the elements that the Detroit the Detroit coalition wanted.
Okay, so let's move forward now, and this is what we have. And this is what we have to work with. Nancy, let me ask you, how do you think this is going to impact whether parents enroll their children in DPS in the fall? How this further, defines the education landscape in the city?
I think there's going to be a drop in DPS enrollment. I think parents are unsure about what's going to happen. I think that parents have no confidence in the stability of the system. I think we're going to see a decline in DPS enrollment in the fall. Also, this is happening so late in the school year. A lot of people have made their decisions about where they're sending their kid to school next year already. And if this package had been passed, I don't know, a year ago, and it had had time to go into effect, and it was providing stability, you might start to see an improvement. But at this point, no, I think there's going to be a decline, and that's just going to worsen DPS's problem because of the way funding is linked to enrollment.
I think that's
Nolan,
like
what do you
predicting it's going
think?
to get dark tonight. There's been drops in DPS enrollment going back for as long as anyone can remember. This
I think it's going to be more
legislation
significant,
gives
let me
them
say that.
$1,200 additional per student in classroom money, which should allow them to become more competitive. It allows them to raise teacher salaries, which should allow them to compete for better instructors. It provides for opportunities for them to innovate a little, which should make them more attractive to the community.
And it's
But
June,
people
and
have
school
been
starts in
leaving
September.
People have been leaving this district for years because they haven't been satisfied with the product. And unless they improve the product, that's not going to change. They have the resources now to improve the product. I think a good deal depends on what sort of school board they elect.
And
you know, that was the difference in the city.
And they have a start, and now that's going to be the next thing, is seeing who's going to be wanting to run for this position, which is going to be very important.